What's going on, people? Welcome to an In Motion Football live stream. My name is Alam, and today we have the fifth last iteration of our offseason preview series where we look at football teams and talk about their outlook heading into the offseason. What's their situation look like financially? Where are they at? What's possible? What's not possible? What's in their best interest? What isn't? So these are all things we're going to look at. This stream that we got into is the Giants and Browns stream. And the reason they're grouped together is because why the hell are these rosters so expensive? That's this episode here. Giants and Browns, two teams that do not have an abundance of cap space. They're picking second and third overall, the second and third worst teams in football last year. You might think that, okay, these might be teams that have an opportunity to strip down to the bottom and build up from a foundation. That is not the case at all. Both these teams are very expensive, and we're going to explain why. There's a lot of teams that suck, but most teams have an opportunity to get better. Both these teams kind of have the odds stacked against them. They're going to have to try to make the most out of expensive players that aren't giving them much. So we're going to jump right into it here. I'm going to make this screen bigger so that you don't have to use a magnifying glass to look at the stream. We're going to start with... where are we at? We're going to start with the Giants. Okay, so New York Football Giants. I passed them. Where are they at? No, I didn't pass them. Okay, Giants, here we are. So, a team that is bringing back the bulk of what they had last year. This is probably too zoomed in. All right, there we go. That's pretty ideal. Darius Slayton is going to be missing. Still a good football player. Unfortunately, they did not have the roster required to it did not have the Jared. I'm throwing the link in the chat. I'll get you in at the end of every team, or at the end of the teams. But yeah, so yeah, they're bringing back most of their team. Darius Slayton won't be here. Still a good player, but not really somebody who got to show how good he is last year because no quarterback, no passing attack really. Greg Van Roden, a 30-plus-year-old guard. Basically, their whole quarterback room, Drew Lock won't be back. Jason Pinnock, one of their safeties. So everybody else is coming back. If we look at what this team was last year, the Giants were 29th in EPA as an offense, and defensively were 26th. So this was not a good team. As for why that's the case, part of that is because they just never had the quarterback situation figured out. So perhaps they would be better if they had even standard quarterback play. But defensively, the numbers were horrible. And you look at the team, they have Dexter Lawrence, one of the best nose tackles in football. Obviously, a very well-compensated player who's damn good at what he does. You got Brian Burns, who is a premier pass rusher in the league. You got Azeez Ojulari and Kayvon Thibodeau. So you have depth at pass rushers, at the pass rusher spot as well. Couple high picks. You got Tyler Nubin, Deontay Banks. I guess, somebody would be left thinking, why is this team not good? Obviously, the quarterback is a big position. The offensive coaching, I think, is okay. The defensive coaching, they might have to examine. But one of their bigger issues is, despite the fact that they're one of the second worst teams in football, or not one of the second, the third worst team in football, the Giants actually in the top half of the league in terms of guaranteed money on their books, and this is with no quarterback on the roster. So even though the Giants are literally in the middle of the pack in terms of guaranteed money in football, you can't quite say that they're middle of the pack because they have zero quarterback dollars on their books, while a bunch of other teams do. So they would be going, even if they add a backup quarterback, they would go much higher up this list if they had even one quarterback on the books. So the Giants are, again, one of the more, not a cheap team. They're not in a situation where they have a bunch of money to spend. So kind of in a difficult spot where the solution for them is not just to splash the cash. They are in a situation where the coach and the general manager both might get fired. Dayball and Shane are probably headed into prove it year. They're both headed into a prove it year where if things go bad, especially with how things went last year, they probably both get fired. So these two figures, the coach and the GM, are coming back next year with the third worst team in football not much money to spend, and their jobs are on the line. This is a horrible situation. So, in terms of what they should be doing moving forward, obviously they got to get the quarterback situation figured out. At running back, you have Tracy and Singletary, and that is standard. Like, that should be fine. When you have those two running backs, the running backs won't be the reason why you're not good enough. But truthfully, it's not like that's an amazing strength or anything on this roster. If they wanted to add another running back in the draft, I guess I would understand. On the offensive line, they have to figure things out. Illuminor is over 30. You got to figure out what you want to do with Evan Neal. You got to replace a guard. I think they're probably okay with JMS and Runyon at center and left guard. Andrew Thomas, obviously, they would be happy with at left tackle. So you got to figure out an offensive lineman or two. You probably need another receiver because you're not going to have Slayton. Wandale and Jalen Hyatt haven't really proven themselves yet. So you need a receiver. You need a couple linemen. You got to, I guess, hope that Tyron Tracy and Theo Johnson, 4th and 5th round picks from last year, grow into, I guess, being what you need from the tight end and running back position. But offensively, the big thing is quarterback. They have to figure out the quarterback position. They're not going to get Matthew Stafford. They might get Aaron Rodgers. I think that would be a disaster. If I was them, I would actually go after Justin Fields. I think I've seen what Brian Daboll can do with two mobile quarterbacks in Josh Allen and Daniel Jones. If I'm them, I'm kicking the tires on Justin Fields. I'm drafting a quarterback, and I'm calling it a day. But yeah, as far as what they're going to do, so I think that makes most sense generally in like a neutral setting. The problem with them is that they're coaching and general managing for their lives, Shane and Daboll. So they can't, I mean, they probably don't feel comfortable handing the reins to Justin Fields and being like, save our jobs. So that's probably not going to happen. They probably would feel more comfortable with a guy like an Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson, a vet that can come win games and save their jobs. But I do think that is the very reason they might have a bad offseason, because I don't think that's the answer at all, in the slightest. So kind of a tricky situation that they're in. Defensively, I think they need I would say some defensive tackle health, and it's a great year to need defensive tackles. DJ Davidson and Raheem Nunez-Roches probably not the great options. You have Dexter Lawrence, so you have somebody that's constantly demanding double teams. You don't even need an elite player next to them. You just need somebody that's solid. And yeah, they haven't quite been able to do that. So that would definitely help their defense. I would say that I'm comfortable with Burns and Thibodeau. They're going to lose Aziz Ojulari. But yeah, they could figure some depth out in the draft, I'm sure. At the corner spot, I don't really know what to make of Cordell Flott and Drew Phillips. I think they're probably comfortable with Deonte Banks at the very minimum as a starter in the secondary. But yeah, they could definitely upgrade at least one of the spots. I don't like, obviously I wasn't watching the Giants closely last year, but I don't think that Flott and Phillips were like a dynamic tandem, and then they were just set at corner. So you could use some secondary help. You got to replace one of your starters. They're probably going to be comfortable letting Tyler Newbin start. But yeah, you need pieces all over the place. And again, it's not like they're a team with a bunch of money, because they're in the middle of the pack without having signed a quarterback, without having one singular quarterback on the roster. So you got a team that's the 29th EPA on offense, the 26th EPA defensively, a roster that needs a lot of help, doesn't have the cash to quite do it. Really the pressure is on Daboll and the defensive coordinator. Actually, don't even know who is it. It's not Patrick Graham. Whoever the defensive coordinator is, they need to coach up what's here. They need some best case scenarios from a lot of their young players, whether that's Hyatt / Wandale, Tyron Tracy, Theo Johnson, in the young players in the secondary, Micah McFadden. They need those guys to develop, because the answers definitely aren't really going to be in free agency, and it's not quite on the roster in terms of, just there being a bunch of hidden value. These young players have to develop. So that's that with the Giants. Again, a very expensive, like a surprisingly expensive team. a team that's putting their GM and their coach in a very difficult spot. And we'll have to see what they do in the draft. But to pivot to the second team that we're looking at today, the Cleveland Browns, it's kind of a different story because the Browns, technically worse than the Giants. Let's look at by EPA, the 32nd offense in football, and defensively by EPA, the 14th defense. So hilariously, the Cleveland Browns, absolutely horrendous offensively and kind of okay defensively. The biggest issue, though, is that when we look at their guaranteed money on the roster, the Cleveland Browns are right up there with the Philadelphia Eagles. The Cleveland Browns are by far one of the most expensive teams in football. Look at the gap between them and Jacksonville is similar to the gap between Jacksonville and San Francisco. The Browns are in another, look, this is the whole thing. Look how far the Browns are from everybody else. Browns are one of the most expensive teams in football. And this is it. This is the expensive team. The team that finished, what did they finish last year? Yeah, the second worst team in football. So when we get into how that happened, it's the offense, right? Because like the stats showed, Cleveland Browns, they were not a horrible defense. And oddly enough for them, they cut Juan Thornhill, but they're basically bringing the entire defense back. Issue for them is that they're not bringing Myles Garrett back. He's in the process of forcing his way out. So you are going to lose Myles Garrett. But in terms of what the compensation they get for Myles Garrett, the fact that you can draft pass rushers in this draft, like, they're not going to fall off a cliff because of losing Myles Garrett. It's a horrible thing, but they'll probably, I wouldn't say it's far-fetched to say they could bring back an average defense again next year. When it comes to the offensive side of the ball, the quarterback was the main issue because they really didn't have one. Deshaun Watson under contract, eating up so much salary, but he obviously didn't play. Bailey Zappi, what can you expect from Bailey Zappi? DTR hasn't really shown much development, so they had to rely on Jameis Winston. That was a big part of the reason that they finished the 32nd offense by EPA. When it comes to the rest of their offensive personnel, obviously you didn't have Nick Chubb healthy for the bulk of the first half of the year, and then when he did get healthy, didn't quite look the same. Year one off of major knee injuries are always difficult, but that's a difficult one. They're bringing back the rest of the running back room, but it wasn't particularly impressive, so they got to upgrade there. Obviously, they have to upgrade at quarterback. You're probably okay with David Njoku. In terms of the offensive line, I don't think it's horrible in terms of personnel. They just need to figure out one starter. Now, I don't know if Bitonio is going to get cut or not, but the center... The center is probably, I think he's functional. You got Weipler, the developmental draft pick behind him. I think they could get some type of production from one of those spots. But again, I might be wrong about that. But you got Wyatt Teller and Conklin on the right side with DeJuan Jones and Zach Zinter, 2 mid-round picks behind them. There's enough pieces there. Again, I think if they figure out the left tackle spot, they should have enough to piece together a functional offensive line. Obviously, I think Andrew Berry, the GM, he was in Philadelphia at some point, so he must buy into the trenches philosophy. You'd imagine that the Browns would reinforce heavily there in the draft, but from an offensive line standpoint, it's not a disaster or anything. The way you might think that the 32nd offense by EPA in football, the way their offensive line would be a disaster, it's not really the case here. And then from a receiver standpoint, Jerry Jeudy, I guess, kind of lived up to the trade. He got a contract extension. I don't think Cedric Tillman did much, although I might be confusing him with somebody else. But I think they need a couple of receivers. I don't think they have, starting quality receivers left on the roster, with Elijah Moore being a free agent. So you need a couple of receivers, you need a running back, and you need a quarterback. This offense is going to struggle to get better, especially considering that the Browns are just so expensive of a football team. Literally almost the most expensive team in football. The only team above them, reigning Super Bowl champions. So in terms of what this team should do, they got to draft a quarterback round 1 or round 2. I think round 1 gets them their best chance at obviously having quarterback that can play. But round 2 might be the best bang for their buck in terms of value. Where does the investment have to go? Early parts of the draft, they should go towards the trenches, and then beyond that, they should go out to the offensive, like to get weapons. You got to draft a running back, a receiver, maybe 2 receivers, but yeah, you can't spend much money to fill these holes. Jerry Jeudy is going to be seeing double teams all year next year. Yeah, it's going to be tough for them. Again, the financial situation is horrible. It's a nightmare. Defensively, they're going to lose Myles Garrett. That's really the only loss that they're going to undertake, but that's obviously going to be a horrible one. So that's not going to be great. But hopefully they can get a really, really good compensation for Myles Garrett, and that helps at least a little bit replace what they're missing. Next year, again, they should be an average defense, but I think they're going to struggle to not be a horrible offense again, and that might cost Stefanski his job. But yeah, that's these two teams. Very complicated situations. Why are these rosters so expensive? In terms of the teams that are picking 2 and 3 in the draft, for those teams to not have an abundance of cash to spend, truly a tragedy. But yeah, that's the situation with the Browns and the Giants, people. We're going to wrap this stream up. Yeah, Jared, I see you. Join one of the next streams. Actually, no, I'll look you up, but I think it's a common last name, just a common name generally. So hop backstage for one of the next streams, and like put the URL for your account in the private chat, and then I'll find your account. But yeah, shout out to everybody in here. I'm going to end this stream and in a couple minutes start the next stream scheduled. The next stream is about the Niners and the Vikings. So, more interesting football teams for sure to talk about, but that's what we're going to be doing. I'll see you guys there. Like, actually, you know what? I'll make it even easier for you guys. I'm going to drop the link to the next stream in the chat. Bear with me, people. Oh, damn. Do we get the raid for this? That's tough. That's tough, dude. Oh, bro, do we get the Sarcasm City raid for this? Oh, yeah. Big ups to everybody in here. I'm going to have to hang around for a couple more minutes then. But yeah, big ups to everybody in here pouring in from Sarcasm City. This is Emotion Football. This is an NFL football channel. We are talking about the Cleveland Browns and the New York Giants and their offseason outlooks. I was literally just about to end this stream, by the way, people. So anybody pouring in that wants to tap into the next stream, what I'm doing is I'm talking about the different teams in the NFL and what their circumstances heading into the offseason. Basically, the NFL equivalent of the transfer market. So it's like a transfer season, or transfer window preview stream series that I'm doing. This one just finished up. I'm highlighting this link here for everybody that's pouring in from the raid. Shout out to Flawless as always. Appreciate the support as always. But yeah, I'm dropping the link here. You guys can click this link and follow me to the next stream. I'm going to start that up in a couple minutes. Don't forget to hit the like button here, hit the like button there, subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be very active as free agency kicks off. But yeah, big up to everybody in here. I'm going to get us sent over to the next stream, get that started right away. I'll see you guys in a bit.